Hello again. Welcome to video 2 in Module 7 on Scoring Performance-Based Assessment. Our main discussion content will be on the scoring criteria for scoring writing and speaking performances, the key principle for scoring, and some common errors in scoring performance-based assessment. First, regarding the criteria to score students' writing product, Grab and Kaplan in 1996 proposed one model with 7 interacting areas of knowledge: syntactic structures, semantic senses and mapping, cohesion signaling, genre and organizational structuring to support coherence interpretation, lexical forms and relations, stylistic and register dimensions of text structures, and finally, non-linguistic knowledge bases, including word knowledges. Within each of these interacting components are a series of other subcomponents which also interact with each other. If the criteria sound complicated to you, don't worry. In practice, the theoretical models are often more specific with specific criteria. One example is the IELTS scale for essay assessment, which include 4 major criteria named task achievement, including answering all the questions, presenting the arguments, developing the main arguments, coherence and cohesion, which include the logical ordering of ideas and the use of cohesive devices, lexical resources, which indicate the use of complicated academic vocabulary, the range of vocabulary, and lastly, grammatical range and accuracy, which are clarified to be the sentence type, the mechanic mistake, etc. Each of these criteria has some performance levels. For instance, you can look across the different band score from 6 to 9 and see that in developing main ideas, in band 6, the performance of students is some ideas are inadequately developed, while in band 9, the description is fully extend and support ideas. As another illustration, in the use of cohesive devices, students at the lower level can use only a limited number of grammatical devices, while the better student can use a variety of devices. Let's now turn to speaking scale components. Many authors have tried to define the criteria which make up speaking proficiency. The model you can see here is extracted from Brown 2001, which composes of 6 major categories of criteria, namely grammar, vocabulary, comprehension, fluency, pronunciation, and the range of tasks that students can participate in. Pronunciation, for instance, is broken down into the mastery of sounds, accents, and communication effect. Unlike in writing assessment, the development of contents and ideas in speaking is often not considered important. In practice, the speaking criteria of IELTS exams are divided into 4 major ones: fluency and coherence, lexical resources, grammar range and accuracy, and pronunciation. Like in writing, each of these major criteria is broken down into smaller and more observable ones. For instance, fluency and coherence include the use of repetition and self-correction, the development of topics, the use of markers and connectives, etc. Each of these small criteria then have different descriptions in different bands. Now, after knowing the common criteria for performance-based assessment and the types of scale for scoring performance-based assessment, how do you score student performances in the class? Well, there are a number of strategies, and each rater or teachers may have their own preference. But to ensure the quality of assessment, the most important strategy is to prepare the scale very carefully, either by selecting a good and suitable one for your context or developing one yourself, and then prepare the sample performances for different levels in the scale so that you can have something to refer to while you are scoring. These sample performances can be taken from students' work in the previous years. Next, if you are scoring many questions at the same time, you can reduce the carryover effect by scoring all the performances in one question before moving to those in the next question. If you score one student's full performance of several questions at the same time, your scoring of the second question, for example, may be affected by the impression you have had with the student performance in the first question. Scoring one question at a time will help you focus in the criteria for one question and avoid scoring the student performance in the next question based on the impression you have had with the previous one. Moreover, to ensure that you score students consistently, please have a look at the previous paper or presentation you have scored to check if you may need to change the score. Hiding away students' identity and score them anonymously is also one way to ensure you can avoid scoring students according to your previous impression of the student in real life, for example. Finally, after scoring, to ensure scoring accuracy, you may ask other teachers to rescore the student performances. Co-scoring or double scoring is known as one great strategy to increase scoring accuracy or inter-rater reliability. For a better effect on students' learning, you should provide them with detailed feedback on the strengths and weaknesses and convince them about these rather than just giving a score. The skill of giving constructive feedback are especially important, which we will study in details in the next module. Without enough training, teachers and raters may make errors while scoring. Rater effects, which are also named as rater bias, rater errors, rater variability, are not clearly and unanimously defined. However, they are all related to the behavior of raters, which lead to different estimates of students' ability and test difficulty. A list of the most frequently mentioned sources of rater errors in rating can be found in Myford and Wolfe in 2004. The first error in this list, also the most common ones, are leniency and severity effect, also called generosity error. This is the tendency of a rater to rate well above or below the midpoint of the scale used, or to rate those who they know well with higher scores. They always give too high scores or too low scores. Next, halo effect is the scoring of performances with general impressions and the making of a general judgment of the whole product rather than of specific indicators. Raters may fail to discriminate student performances, judge them against only one out of many indicators, or only grant one particular rating in different indicators. The third type of errors, central tendency, indicates an overuse of the midpoint levels in the performance levels while avoiding the extreme categories. Raters may avoid giving a high or low score and give only average scores. Sometimes this phenomenon happens with new teachers who lack confidence and are afraid of being judged as too lenient or too harsh. Finally, restriction of range effect happens when raters only give scores at any point, not only the midpoint on the scale. This is a case of leniency, severity, and or center tendency error. There are a number of other mistakes, such as scoring sequence mistake, when raters are affected by the performance of the previous student they have just scored, and compare students rather than using the given scale. Or raters may forget the scale contents and are drifted, even though at the beginning they are very accurate. It is important that you know these scoring errors to avoid making them. Making mistakes in scoring may not only have serious effect on student motivation, the accuracy of scores, but also reflect the teacher's misuse or misunderstanding of the assessment targets. The raters or the teachers make the mistakes because they do not remember the learning and assessment targets which are in the scale. That is the end of this video. I hope you can select good scoring instrument, avoid the mistakes in scoring, and find the task of scoring performance-based assessment easier and more interesting with this lesson. Thank you for watching.